In constraint optimization, now we are moving to the transformation methods. In this particular lecture, we will focus on penalty function methods. So as we know, a constraint optimization problem can be written as minimization of the function fx subject to we have inequality constraint greater than type, greater than equal to type, equality constraints, and variable bounds. So in these transformation methods, these are the methods which are simple and most popularly optimization methods for handling constraints. So for a given point, if any constraint is violated, the objective function is penalized. So this constraint problem is transformed into a sequence of unconstrained problem by adding penalty term of each constraint violation. So you will see that we have already gone through the method of multiplier in which we converted the constraint problem into unconstrained problem by adding the Lagrangian multiplier with the constraints. In the similar format, what penalty function methods do, they add the constraint violation with a factor, with a scaling factor to the objective function. And as and when this any constraint is violated, we increase the value of this penalized function so that we can see or we can compare a feasible point with respect to the infeasible point. We have two types of penalty function methods. First is called interior penalty method. So these methods work for feasible points and penalize point that are close to the constraint boundary. On the other hand, the exterior penalty methods, these methods penalize infeasible points, but not the feasible points. So in that case, we will be adding that penalty into the for the infeasible point. Now, as we will see when we will be solving an example, these penalty function methods work in a series of a sequence, each time modifying a set of penalty parameters. So as you can see in equation number 2, there is a term called R. So this is called penalty parameter, a set of penalty parameters and starting a sequence with a point obtained in the previous sequence. So similar to the generations, we are going to have sequences. So in a one sequence, our algorithm will be running for some iterations. Similarly, we will move to the another sequence. Then our algorithm will move for the for some iterations. So every time what you will see that the penalty term R will be changing. However, the optimal point which we get from say sequence 1 will be taken into the sequence 2 as a starting point, and we will move forward. So these things will be clear when we will solve a problem afterwards. Here, the equations 2, you can see that the penalty function is made of the vector x and also a vector of r. This is equals to the objective function value, and this omega is the penalty term. So this penalty term is made of the value of r, our constraints such as g and h. So all of the constraints are taken care. So here r is the set of penalty parameters. So this parameter will be a constant for a one sequence. Omega is the penalty term chosen to favor the selection of feasible point over infeasible point. And that is the whole purpose, that when we are moving from one point to another point, how we will find that the point is better, the new point is better than the previous, as well as if we are comparing say feasible versus infeasible point, then how we can compare. So feasible point means there should not be any penalty, but infeasible point means we have to add a penalty so that we can say that fitness wise is still the feasible point is better than infeasible point. So let us begin with the very first method called parabolic method. Now this parabolic penalty, which is omega, equals to r times of h of x, then you have a square of it. Now as you can see, we are writing h, it means that this penalty factor applicable for equality constraint only. Now, as we know that h of xk is equals to 0. So this means right hand equal to the left hand side. As and when it is not, then the constraint is violated. So every time if the point is there and the constraint is violated, then we are going to add this particular term. So as we have understood that the exterior penalty term is used when we take care of the infeasible point. So we can say that this parabolic penalty is an exterior penalty term because we are penalizing all infeasible point. While we are taking parabolic penalty, we make sure that we start with a small value of r, and with every sequence, the value of r is increasing gradually. The another kind of penalty function method we have is called infinite barrier penalty. Now in this particular equation number 4, you can see that we have to identify the constraints which are violated. Means at a given point, if the constraint is not satisfied, it is called the constraint is violated. So we are going to make a summation of all those violated constraints. And here we are taking a positive value. Why? Because our constraint is written as gj of x greater than 0. If it is already greater than equals to 0, this means it is feasible. If it is not, then gg of x is going to take a negative value. So therefore, we are making a summation. And since we are minimizing a problem, this positive value is adding to the objective function value. So in this particular case, generally we start with a very large value of r and which reduces gradually with the sequences. Now, as you can see that we are only considering the constraint which are violated. This means that we are considering all infeasible points. So we are penalizing them. So we can say the infinite barrier penalty, it is an exterior penalty term. Then we have a log penalty. Now in equation number 5, we can see that this omega is equals to minus r times of natural log of g of x. Now since g of x can be greater than 0 or smaller than 0, but inside the log we cannot have the negative value. So this means that this particular penalty method or a parameter penalty term, it is only applicable for feasible point. So therefore, we can say that the log penalty is an interior penalty term. Now in this case, we generally take value of r very large, and then we keep on reducing this particular value gradually. Now coming to the inverse penalty here. Now initially, so what you can see in equation number 6, now there is no mod. So this means that gx, as you know, gx can be greater than 0 or smaller than 0. If it is going to be smaller than 0, this means if I'm adding this omega, we are actually further reducing the penalty function value. How? So penalty function value is equals to objective function plus say inverse penalty. So if a constraint is if the constraint is violated, it means that gx is going to take a negative value. If it is going to take a negative value, then we will be subtracting this value into our objective function. Means we are saying that we are reducing the objective function, which is not true. Why? Because the infeasible point should be penalized. So therefore, this penalty, inverse penalty, should take only positive value of a gx. Since it will take only positive value, means it can deal only with the feasible point. So it is going to penalize the feasible points only. So we can say the inverse penalty is an interior penalty term. Again, in this case, the value of r, we take it very large at the beginning, and we keep on reducing this value gradually. Now come to the bracket operator penalty. Now, as you can see in equation number 7, we have omega equals to r, and then we are using this brackets. And inside the bracket, we are writing say g of x, and we are making a square of it. So So this is called bracket operator. What it means that look at the bottom of this particular equation, that this bracket of alpha is equals to alpha when alpha is negative, otherwise 0. Now, as we know, in our problem formulation, we have used the form of inequality constraint as g of x should be greater than or equals to 0. If it is going to be greater than equals, if it is going to be greater than 0, this means alpha is going to be 0. If g of x is smaller than 0, means the point is the constraint is violated. Then this bracket operator says that you take exactly the same value. So in this case, what we realize that since for a feasible point, the omega is going to be 0, but for infeasible point, we are adding the penalty. So as you can see, we have made a square of this bracket. So this means that we are adding a penalty to the objective function when the point is infeasible. So we can say that this bracket operator penalty is an exterior penalty term. In this case, we generally start a small value of r, and we keep on increasing the value of r gradually. And you will realize that this is one of the most commonly used method in the literature. Now let us see what is the effect of r. Now the change of r in successive sequences of penalty methods depend on interior or exterior penalty. Let us take a situation now. If the optimum point of unconstrained problem is the same as constrained problem, an initial parameter r equals to 0 will solve the constraint problem. It is because constraints do not exclude the optimum point of the constraint of the unconstrained problem. So what this statement says that, look at the figure on the right hand side. So this figure we are familiar. So we have x1 and x2, we have a box constraint. That means we have no constraint other than the variable bound. So suppose we are solving a problem and we get an optimal point. Now suppose we introduce some constraint and you can see the feasible space is reduced at the in the another figure. Now what we can see here is even though constraints are introduced, our optimum solution remains the same as the previous case. So in this case, even if I take r equals to 0, algorithm can find this optimum solution because this constraint is not changing the point and it's not changing our optimum point. Let us take the third case. If the constraint make the optimum solution of the unconstrained problem infeasible, we need to apply a series of sequences of the unconstrained optimization using penalized function. So let us look at this case. Now you remember that we had this particular case discussed in the previous slide. Now as soon as this new particular constraint has come, our optimum point in the previous case, which is in the previous slide, now it is infeasible. And we have to now find the optimum solution. Generally, whenever this situation happens, then our optimum solution most of the time it is lying on the boundary. So this is the boundary of one of the constraint. Now, as we know that what should be the value of r, it depends on exterior and interior penalty. With the exterior penalty method, a feasible or infeasible point can be used as an initial guess. And we start with a small value of r and which we keep on increasing in the successive sequences. However, with the interior penalty methods, a feasible point is needed to start the search. We generally take a value of r very large at the beginning, and we keep on reducing the value of this particular r in every sequence. So what you can see that if I'm considering the exterior penalty method, whether the point is feasible or infeasible, it doesn't matter, it will take care of it. However, for interior penalty methods, we have to start with a feasible point all the time. And therefore, exterior penalty methods are generally used with our techniques to solve an optimization problem. Let us look at the algorithmic representation of penalty function methods. Here we choose two termination parameter epsilon1 and epsilon2 in step 1. We start with the initial guess, say x0. Then we add a penalty term, say omega. So it can be exterior or interior. And then we provide some value of R0. So this is the penalty term. We choose a parameter, say C, for updating the value of R. And this C generally lies between 0 to 1 for interior penalty, and its C is greater than and equals to 1 if it is exterior penalty method. So let us take this is our first iteration. In step 2, we make a penalty function. So this penalty function is, you can see, the objective function value at the current point xt plus the omega. Now we have already gone through the interior and exterior penalty terms, so those particular terms will come here. Now starting with, say, xt, we are going to find a new point xt plus 1 is step 3. And since in this particular case we have this penalty function method, and this penalty function method is an unconstrained problem, so we can use any unconstrained method which we have gone through in the previous chapter for minimizing this penalty function for a given value of, say, RT. Here we can take epsilon1 to terminate the unconstrained search. In step 4, we are going to compare the new point at our new point, the penalty function at the new point minus penalty function at the previous point. If both the points are so close to each other, or we can say the penalty function values are so close to each other, we is smaller than epsilon2, we should stop it. And we can say that capital X of capital T is the new point. Otherwise, we are going to update the value of R in step 5, depending on the interior or exterior penalty method. And finally, we increase the counter of a T by 1. And then we go to the step 2. Again, we will be making this penalty function method, solving it to get the new point. So let us take one example so understand how this method works. So here you can see we are going to minimize this function. This is a Hamel-Blau function, and this Hamel-Blau function we are considering one constraint, which is x minus 5 whole square plus x2 square minus 26 should be greater than 0. So it should be, so 0 is missing on the right hand part, so it is 0 here. Note that as we know, this Hamel-Blau function, it has the optimum solution 3 and 2 when there was no constraint. So unconstrained Hamel-Blau problem has an optimum solution at 3, 2. However, this 3, 2 is not feasible right now because of the current constraint on the top. So now let us find out what could be the optimum solution. So in step 1, we take the bracket operator and we choose initial point 0, 0. So currently it is an infeasible point. And, and we take the initial value of R as 0.1, which is a small value. And this particular value we keep on increasing when we move from one sequence to the another sequence. Now we will take epsilon1 and epsilon2 as a 10 to the power 5 minus 5, which is a small value. Now let us write a penalty function now. So P of X of R0. So we have objective function plus 0.1 is our R value, initial value. And inside the bracket, we have the constraint and we are making a square of it. Now here, note that the variable bound should also be included as constraint in the penalty function. But for clarity and easy illustration, we have not included these bounds as constraints. So we are making our problem simple. Now for solving the unconstrained problem in the previous slide, Let us use the steepest descent method. So here for a steepest descent method, suppose we have iteration k equals to 0, initial point 0, 0, and the function value is 170, and the penalty function value is 170.10. And currently the constraint violation is -1. If we are going to use this steepest descent method, we'll get a new point, say x1 after 150 function evaluation. So as x1 is given as 2.628, 2.475, the function value is 5.709, and the penalty term is 25.996. And the constraint violation is -14.248. So there are multiple observations here. First of all, our point has been improved from 0, 0 to the another point, say x1. Now, if we look at the function value at f of x0 and f of x1, that is also reduced. Look at the penalty function value, which is 170.10. This penalty function value is also reduced to 25.996. Now look at the constraint violation. When we started with a 0 and a 0, the constraint violation was -1. But the new point, the constraint violation has increased. So the question is, when we are changing the constraint problem into the penalty function method, and we are starting with a 0 and a 0, our constraint violation was -1, but this has been increased to -14. So are we going in a right direction or not? Now you remember that we are solving an unconstrained problem by converting this problem by using the penalty function method. Look at the penalty function value of P of x0 R0 and P of x1 R0. Now since the penalty function value is improved, so this means that the steepest descent method is working fine. Similarly, the way we have included the penalty into the objective function and getting the value of this capital P, that is also working fine. Only the issue is that the constraint violation, which was -1, that has increased to -14.248. So why it is happening is this I will illustrate you with the help of a graphical example. Now here you have to remember that if there is a question in quiz or in the assignment, you don't have to solve it using steepest descent. You have to just find the gradient of the P equals to 0 and then find what is the x star. Now we are at the step 4. Since we have already identified the new point, but we don't have any previous point to compare with it. So we are just moving to the step number 5. Now at this particular stage, we have to update the value of R. Now this R1 is, we have taken a factor, say 10. So 10 times of R0, now it is 1.0. Once we have updated this, now we will move to the step number 2. Now when we move to step number 2, so what is the difference between this particular penalty function and the previous penalty function? You can see the objective function is written plus the value of R is changed. So earlier it was 0.1, now it is 1.0, and that is multiplied by the constraint and the bracket, and then there is a square of it. So in step 3, we have to solve it. Since it's an unconstrained problem, we have to we can use any of the methods which we have learned in the previous chapter. Since we are using steepest descent method, after 340 function evaluation, we get new point, say x2, which is 1.011, 2.939. The penalty function method is 58.75. Now again, and the constraint violation is -1.450. Now the question is, in the previous slide, we have seen the penalty function method after step 2, it reduced to 25 point something. Now we have increased the value of R, but this penalty function method is more than the previous in the previous iteration, but our constraint has reduced. So why it is so? So it is because this I will show you with the help of table as well. But as of now, we know that in the previous case, let me go back. In the previous case, when we find this penalty function method, this is at R0, means 0.1. But when we are calculating this particular penalty of x2 at R1, so R1 is now 1. So because of this value of R, our penalty function value is more as compared to the previous iteration. But the constraint violation is improved, means we are going more close towards the feasible region. So that is a good point here. Now let us compare the penalized function value in step 4. So as you can see, P inside x2 and R1 minus P x1 R0. So we are comparing the penalized function value, which is 25.966. It is already a it is already a large value. So we are going to move to the step 5. Now the step 5, we have to again increase the value of R. So R2 is equals to 10 times of R1. Then we get 10 and we move to the step 2. So this means that the first sequence was made for R0 equal to 0.1. Second sequence is made for R1 equal to 1. And the third sequence will be made R2 equals to 10. And this is the way in every sequence you can say that we are using, say, steepest descent method to get a solution for the given problem. Now let us understand and the argument which I have given in the previous slide. So in the first column, it is a sequence 1. The value of R is 0.1. We started with the origin. The penalty function value is 170.10 and the constraint violation is -1. We are minimizing only penalty function value. So after using this steepest descent method and many function evaluation, we can see our penalized function value is reduced. So this means that it is working fine, 25.996. We get a new point as given here and the constraint violation is increased. Now coming to the sequence number 2. Now what you can see is that we are starting with the previous point, which is 2.628, 2.475. Now we have not performed any search, only we have changed the value of R. When we change the value of R, you can see the penalized function, which we got 25.996 in sequence 1 will become 208.70. Why? It is only because everything is the same, only the value of R is changed from 0.1 to 1, and that's why the penalized function value is more. And the constraint violation will remain the same because the point is the same. Now again, we are going to use a steepest descent method to solve a problem. Now look at the last. Can we see that the penalized function value from 208.70, it is improved to 58.757? Yes, it has improved a lot. So this means that steepest descent method is working fine to minimize the penalized function. Now we get a point 1.011, 2.937, and the constraint violation now reduced from -14 to -1.450. So this means the point is more closer to the feasible region. Now, if we in the sequence 10, we are increasing the value of R from 1 to 10. We are starting with the previous best point. So that is 1.011, 2.939. Now look at the value of penalized function. So the same point we are taking, but the penalized function value is more, which is 77.591. It is only because everything remains the same. Only this R value is we are taking 10, and that's why this value is increased. The constraint violation will remain the same. We are going to solve the same problem, same penalized function using, say, steepest descent method. Finally, we get a new point, as you can see at the bottom of the table, and The penalized function right now is 60.233. And you can see the constraint violation is minus 0.119, means we are even more closer to the constraint boundary, or you can say we are more closer to the feasible region. Now let us understand the same problem, because I have not still answered that in sequence number 1, we started with a constraint violation of -1. Then we are moving to a point which is giving more constraint violation. So let us understand that. So this is the contour of the Hamel-Blau function. As we remember, we are solving this problem in the previous chapter. But as soon as this constraint, you can see this particular solid line and G1x is written here. So the minimum point, which was 3 and a 2 earlier, now this has been changed to the minimum point as it is mentioned in the figure. And look at this, on the left hand side of this particular line, this is the feasible region. And on the right hand side of this line is the infeasible region. So we have, our objective is to find this minimum point. Now look at the origin. This is r equals to 0.1. You can see on the top r is equals to 0.1. We are starting from the origin. Now when we are starting from the origin, you can see we are not far from the constraint. And that's why the constraint violation was a small value. But when we run the steepest descent method and it gave me a solution somewhere here, this particular solution is far from the optimum. This particular solution is far from the feasible region. So that's why after performing the optimization in a sequence 1, actually this particular point from the origin has moved away from the feasible region. But what is the important point? That this particular point is relatively closer to our optimum solution as compared to 0 and a 0. And our task is to find the optimum solution for the given problem, right? Fine. Thereafter, we will take r equals to 1. Now can you see in the previous figure the contours of these functions? As soon as you have increased the value of r, the contour of the penalized function are changing. And it says that we have to start from the previous point. So this dashed arrow shows the sequence number 1. Now we are starting from this particular point, and then in the solid arrows, we are taking the point closer to the optimum. So that the point is that in the previous sequence, we started with the point 0, 0. Although this point was closer to the feasible space, but the point itself was very far from the optimum point. And therefore, in the sequence 1, when we get an optimum solution for the penalized function, the penalized function value was improved, but the constraint violation was increased. It is only because we get a point which is far from the feasible region, but closer to the optimum solution. In sequence number 2, you can see that we started from the previous best point, and when we moved, we are already quite close to the optimum. Now let us increase the value of r equal to 10. On the right hand side, you can see that we started from the previous best point, and we are already very close to the optimum solution. So therefore, what this particular analysis says that even though at the beginning our constraint violation was small, but the point was far from the optimum. So we get a point after performing steepest descent method. We get a point which is relatively closer to the optimum point, but our constraint violation was increased. And when we increase the value of r, we try to push this particular solution towards the boundary or the boundary of the feasible region, so that we will get the optimum solution. Here there are some guidelines. So here in the example, what we have solved, we had only one constraint. Suppose we have many constraints, so it is advisable that we should normalize the constraint. So I have written like a one form as Gj of x divided by Gmax should be greater than 0, or 1 minus Gj of x divided by Bj equals Bj greater than 0. So what is Bj? You remember that in our linear programming, we have left hand side is equals to the Bj. So if we have something constant on the right hand side, we can always convert this constant. Otherwise, if we can come up with the Gmax, so in 1 we can find Gj of x divided by Gmax. So in that case, we will not be biasing our search towards any of the constraint. Now, why we are doing so? So suppose we have a one constraint that is varying in the range of say 10 to the power 6. And there is another constraint which is ranging in the terms of say 0.1 and 0.2. So this means when you are finding the value of a G1x, it is in the 10 to the power 6. But when you are finding the value of a G2x, it is in 0.1 or 0.2. Now what will happen that when you are going to add the penalty based on G1 and a G2, then definitely the contribution of G1 is more as compared to G2. So the algorithm or the method will try to satisfy constraint G1 as compared to G2. But when we normalize G1 and a G2, this means the value of a G1 and a G2 will lie always between 0 to 1, minimum to maximum. In this case, our method will not be biased and will search for a point that will be satisfying both the constraints. It is also recommended that if the objective function can be normalized. So what are the methods of the penalty function method? We can use penalty function method for convex and non-convex constraints. So we can handle any type of a constraint. Linear and non-linear constraints can also be handled using these techniques, these penalty function methods. And this is one of the most popular methods to handle the constraints. What are the limitations of these penalty function method? So you can see that in every sequence, the penalized function is distorted as compared to the objective function value. So to explain this point, I'm going to the previous slide. This is the original contours for Hamel-Blau function. Now, when we are including a penalty, so you can see this, there is a small change in the contours in the figure on the right hand side. This is only because these are the contours for the penalized function for a value of 0.1. Now let us take r equal to 1. If you take r equal to 1, the contours are even changing again. When you take r equal to 10, the contours are changing. So the point is that when we are having penalized function, this is actually distorting the contours, and that basically result in a slower convergence. So you remember that in sequence 1, we started from 0, 0, then we get a 1 point, which was not actually the optimum point. Then we increase the value of r, then we are going closer to the r. So what we have to do is every sequence, we have to say increase the value of r, then only we will converge. And in every sequence, we have to run a steepest descent. So that's why their convergence is slow. Second, penalty function method requires more function evaluation. As you can see that in every sequence, we have to perform steepest descent or some other method. So they will take their own function evaluations, and that we have to perform for many sequences. And that's why they need more function evaluations to locate the optimum solution for constraint optimization problem. Third is the artificial local optima can exist due to the distort penalized function. And that is the biggest limitation, that since in the previous example, you have find that we have just one constraint and we are adding that constraint into the objective function. When we are increasing the value of r, the contours are changing drastically. Now let us consider a case when you have multiple constraints. This means all the constraints will be included into the penalty function method, and then you are going to get a very complex contours, and those contours will tell that there are so many local optimas. But actually for the original problem, it is not the case. So therefore, these penalized function method, they distort the contours or contours of the function with respect to the objective function, and those distortion can create artificial local optima, and that will create a problem for us. Now, I'm giving you one particular situation to you. So let us assume that we have a bracketing method. So in this particular bracketing method, you think about it that we started with r equal to 0.1, then 1, and then 10. Why don't we start r is equals to 100 and then solve the problem? Why we need those sequences when we are increasing the value from 0.1 to 1, 1 to 10? So I can directly start with r equal to 10 and then I should get an optimum solution. Try to think why we are doing so.